Hey guys, Kyle here. So, just before the show starts, I wanted to mention our Patreon. You can pay us $1 a month as a thank you, as a tip. You can pay $2 a month to get access to one of our bonus content shows, episodes 2 days early, and a secret Discord chat where all of our Patreon donors get to go and hang out and talk with us directly. Then there's a $5 tier that you can donate to get access to a whole bunch more content. We have multiple bonus episodes on there. So please check it out. Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We don't advertise, we don't make money. So check it out and throw some money if you think that would be cool. Thanks.
Welcome to It Gets Weird, our comedy show where we explore the unusual, the unbelievable, and the unexplained to try to make your world a little weirder. I'm Nile.
And I'm Kyle. And Nile, I'd like to tell you something exciting that's going on in my life.
So you sound so excited. I'll just say that right now. There's some vibrational energy coming off of you.
Vibrational energy, yes. Excitement, yes. Although it might not be as palpable as you would expect, because I'm very calm, Nile. And that's because I've been taking David Lynch's transcendental meditation classes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I've been traveling around the world this last week, Poland, Iceland, Japan, and I've been meditating everywhere that I go, transcendental around the world, as the term is defined, I think. Is the bit that I'm doing.
So the bit is that you think the word transcendental means across the world?
Oh, it doesn't?
Not to normally, I don't normally call such specific attention to the bits you're trying to do, but that is an interesting leap. Okay, so yes,
Thanks.
Kyle, so transcendental is more in line of, I don't know, it breaks out of your brain processes, I guess. What does transcendental actually mean? I only know it as...
transcends your normal consciousness, I believe.
Yeah, okay, that's the way to put it. Yeah, see, we brought Jules in because Jules knows all about this shit.
Is this a thing David Lynch actually does?
Transcendental meditation? Yeah, he's really
but I'm
into
saying
it.
he has classes?
I think he does, yes.
Okay, I'm going to sign up for that. That sounds like a really that sounds like actually like it goes hard as hell.
That honestly might be a 2024 goal,
For sure.
Get on that transcendental meditation trip.
Patreon goal.
Awesome.
Patreon goal, put Nile and Kyle and Jules into transcendental meditation classes with David Lynch.
Yeah. We do have a guest in the studio today.
Yeah.
If that wasn't apparent already.
It's not David Lynch.
It's not David Lynch, but
I'm here, guys.
Some call
Sorry, he just
some call you.
What's the weather like in your neck of the woods, David?
Yeah, how's that weather?
Hang on. Let me get him over here close by the mic because he just stepped in. We just before he got up on the mic, we were having a real good trans meditation sesh, and so Jules wanted to know because he doesn't have headphones on. He can't.
Yeah.
You
have to relay it.
Yeah. Let me. So David, what's the weather been like today in Indiana? 87 degrees, rainy, clouds in the sky, beautiful. I just had a root beer and 2 cookies. Beautiful. Oh, thank you, David. That's awesome.
David, that's fantastic. I know you can't hear me, but I just want to say I'm a big fan.
Thank
of your
you,
work.
Niall. He kind of took cues from me. You can't see it. It's on the webcam, so he knew.
That was really good.
Yeah, that was
thank
honestly not to pull back the curtain even more, but that was pretty smart.
That whipped ass. It was extremely accurate.
You can tell Kyle is one who has sampled the wares of David Lynch's daily forecast.
I mean,
yeah, I loved it.
The number of times that I have seen the clip of him going, to think that you've watched a movie on your fucking telephone. Get real.
And
That's
he's right.
One of my favorite clips of his. Also,
he walked that back though, didn't he?
He did. He was like, people kind of, I think, pointed out to him like, well, some people can't afford, nice big TVs. Sometimes some people can only get those little phones, and I think I heard that
for those people, that's fine.
Yeah.
Most of the people that you hear are watching fucking 3-hour long actual films on their phone are just assholes, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
whenever people make that argument, I'm like, yeah, but most of the people that we're talking about have a huge TV and they're watching Twitch on the TV and then on their phone, on their couch, they have fucking Wolf of Wall Street. They're like, I don't get it.
One of the only reasons I've ever heard someone cramming like a serious film on their phone is podcasters trying to like cram in movies they have to watch before a podcast recording.
And it's like, that's not
the same.
not
but
how the filmmaker intended.
Yeah, no.
No,
And it's within your power not to do that.
Most filmmakers did not intend that. I think one of the only examples I can think of a filmmaker intending to have people, watch the movie on their phones was, I'm pretty sure, Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Yeah, he actually said, please, if you can, you should port that onto like a Game Boy Advance, actually.
I'm so glad. I was going to say Game Boy Video. I was going to say he originally was going to release it on 172 individual cartridges with a Game Boy Video.
Yeah.
And it was going to really revitalize the sales of that particular product.
The thing is, like, when he was talking about this at the
it's in
premiere,
4:3. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's that aspect ratio, though.
When he was talking about this at the premiere, he was like, ideally, you would be watching it on an iPod Classic, but if you have to watch it on your phone, then that's fine.
I actually heard that he said no one should watch my movies anymore, and I was wrong actually the whole time.
Wow.
See, I heard he said, "Wait, you guys watch those things?"
That was a
I
joke.
thought that was a bit.
That was a bit that I did. I didn't think anyone would watch it if I made it 4 hours, black and white. 90% of it is in slow-mo.
Yeah.
I thought you guys would get that it was a bit at that point.
Yeah.
I got the bit. I kind of got it.
Yeah,
Look,
I
I've been
chuckled
laughing
and
watching
I
it.
chuckled
Yeah.
and scrolled right past it. I got it, Zach.
Yeah.
I went 4 hours. No way he
No,
expects
thank
me
you.
to
No,
watch that.
thank you.
Oh man.
So, Jules is on the show today,
Yeah.
and
That's right.
Nile is the topic master. Is that
True.
Is that a?
I can tell you right now from where I'm sitting, I can see Nile. Nile has a can of Coca-Cola, a nice crisp can of Coke.
Okay.
And he's got his big old tablet, which I have come to learn means he's got some notes on that bad
I
boy.
do
Okay.
have some notes
That's
on this bad boy.
Typically what that means, yeah.
Today, everyone,
Oh.
both co-hosts and listeners alike.
Uh-huh.
Listeners, you already know this because you clicked on the episode. But today, we're gonna take a trip around in the water. We're gonna go hang out on a boat because today, Kyle, I want to talk about the legend of the ghostly ship, the Flying Dutchman.
Oh, so this is maybe sort of a transcendental podcast episode then.
Yes.
Call us T-Pain the way we're on a boat.
I was honestly, if you had said the Netherlands somehow in your whole places you have gone,
Yeah.
I was going to be so fucking giddy,
Definitely.
You didn't quite give me that setup quite that level, but today we're gonna talk about the Flying Dutchman. Jules said something really funny that I kind of missed, and Kyle's been laughing about it this whole time, and I just have been like continuing on.
You didn't
because
hear
I
it at
missed
all?
No.
It's
Okay.
sort of one of those. If you were there, you'd get it. But if you weren't there,
I'm gonna
you might not.
when I listen back and edit this podcast, it's gonna be really fucking fun. So, I want to talk about the Flying Dutchman today because it's a.
Brian Doyle Murray?
Oh,
Is that a thing?
He voices it on SpongeBob.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
that
good
my
pull.
little bit.
I forgot that was
that
the person
is
that did it.
the only place my brain goes to when I hear the name the Flying Dutchman, because
Is SpongeBob?
SpongeBob was such like a integral part of my childhood.
Wow, not a big Wagner fan then, huh?
Like, I guess not, but not when I
I
was
see where your priorities
8
lie.
years old. But
Yeah.
I do love
All right.
some SpongeBob. Honestly, still would prefer SpongeBob over Wagner, I think.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of a third cartoon character that Brian Doyle Murray voices. Because I was going to do a fuck, marry, kill, but I can only think of the other one that I can think of right now.
Okay.
I was going to say
What?
fuck, marry, kill, Flying Dutchman, Cap'n Knuckles, and then
Oh,
I was going
yeah.
to do a third one, but I can't think of it. Well, he has to do another iconic one. I'm sure there's another.
Maybe we can throw like a wild card in there, like Tom Kenny as the pirate in SpongeBob, the
Okay,
live
yeah, sure.
action
Fuck
pirate.
you. Then you go first, Kyle.
All right, fuck Tom Kenny the pirate.
Okay.
marry the Flying Dutchman for his riches and treasures, and we're killing Captain Knuckles because that
You're gonna
man
kill Knuckles?
I mean, I do love Knuckles, but like, have you seen how much he got on fucking Bubby's nerves and how many
I don't
times
know.
he let the little boy down and never made it? Did he even make it to
literally
Candy
the
Island?
titular character, and you called him the little boy.
Yeah.
The show is named after him.
He let
Kyle never put
Flapjack
that
down.
together. He thought it was just a little boy, and the show just was named after
He
Pancake.
let
I've
Flapjack
got to
down
lock
so
down
much.
Knuckles. To me, Knuckles is my bottom bitch, 100%.
And
He-
can I
it's-
say
it's-
that
I'm
makes
wifing
sense
Knuckles.
for you? That's like that is your area of interest with
Hell yeah.
media men, if you don't mind me saying.
For sure.
But
He's
now
my type.
I'm curious who dies and who gets fucked.
I don't want to kill Tom Kenny, but I
Okay.
will.
But
But I will.
If you have
and
to.
I will fuck the Flying Dutchman.
sure, that's okay. Wow. Rest in
I
peace,
want
Tom
to
Kenny.
fuck that little tail.
All right.
Want to see what I can get done.
Yeah. Do you want to see what you can get done, huh? That's.
Niall, it's your turn.
I don't know who Captain Knuckles. I never watched
Oh,
Flapjack.
You
come
can't picture him though.
on.
He's
No.
like the blue ovular man with the stripy shirt,
Yeah.
and a big nose.
Yeah, and he was like
and
a
he sounds
pirate
like
captain.
the Flying Dutchman.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think I never watched Flapjack, so I guess I'll kill Captain Knuckles. I'm
Oh,
sorry, Jules.
Damn.
Rip.
And I'll marry the Flying Dutchman, and I guess.
So wait,
fuck
you
the
and
pirate.
Kyle's answers are the same.
It's the
Are
same.
they?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, it just is.
I'm glad we have established that.
Yeah. So
That was really important.
that was really important, and now we can talk about. Well, now we can
Excellent.
fill in the blanks of what the fuck the Flying Dutchman is, because
Yeah.
it turns out you might be surprised to hear there's a lot of competing information out there about what the origins of the Flying Dutchman, the story in which it came to be, and so the legend, so to speak, has shifted pretty heavily throughout history. So I did my best to give us a rundown of the Flying Dutchman legend, its historical implications, and sightings, and all that kind of stuff. So we're
Would
gonna
it
talk about
surprise you to hear that the only context I've ever heard of the Flying Dutchman my whole life is SpongeBob? And that literally when you said to me the other day that the topic was the Flying Dutchman, I thought, oh yeah, that is probably a thing. And I'd like to be on that episode to learn about it.
that wouldn't surprise me, like, because it's one of those things that has just been in popular culture my whole life.
Yeah.
But I never, like, it was one of those things that I didn't know if it was based on a real thing or not until I was older. But it is incredibly pervasive in, like,
Doesn't it sound like something SpongeBob writers would have made
oh
up?
yeah.
Though?
Yeah.
It sounds,
does.
it's very on brand for SpongeBob.
The whole thing of it being a Dutchman is like, why is the Dutchman the fucking pirate guy? Like,
Yeah.
what is that?
Yeah, and you know, it sounds as a kid the same sort of way the hash slinging slasher did. The Flying
Sure.
Dutchman
Yeah.
hash slinging slasher, Nosferatu.
Schmitty von Verger, Burger,
Yes,
Durger,
he was number
whatever.
one.
He
Yeah.
was number one. Okay.
Holy shit. Also, I just wanted to say that, like, I've wanted to do a ghost ship episode for a long time. Because there's a bunch of them out there, and there's a lot of weird stories surrounding them. But, like, it's been done to death online on different shows. And I feel like we've also done at least one ghost ship episode, but it might have been you, Niall.
I did like a Bermuda Triangle episode very early.
Yeah.
You did a Bermuda Triangle episode very early
Okay.
on, and then I did a Ghost Carriage.
But
So what I'm hearing right now is that you guys are gonna watch Ghost Ship on the Patreon.
Sure, I'll do
next
it.
week.
if I don't have to pay any money to watch it, sure.
Okay.
I don't think that was a particularly good movie, if I remember correctly.
Well, it's one part of it is seared into my mind
Oh,
forever,
yeah,
and I will
you
never
did.
forget
I think
it.
I
and
know what it
traumatized
is.
me as a child.
Is it-
Say it?
Is it a person getting beheaded?
It's the when everyone on the deck, the like cable cuts across
Yeah.
and it cuts them all in
I've
half.
seen that as
I
well.
saw that when I was a child, and it freaked me the fuck
That
out.
would probably be bad to
would
see
do
as
it.
a kid.
Yeah.
Well, I'm only bringing it up because I love that movie. One, that was a joke. I've never seen it. But no, the Flying Dutchman, like that would be. I've not heard somebody cover the Flying Dutchman in regards to the ghost ship phenomena. So
Here's a just a general note. I typically don't look at other podcasts in terms of what they've done. Like I used to do that, and like early on in the show, I was really self-conscious about trying to cover stuff that wasn't everywhere and hadn't been covered and all this kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, it's just like I don't pay any attention whatsoever. I don't know who's covered what.
I don't really either, but like it's like sometimes in researching you find like there are certain topics where you're just endlessly routed towards other podcasts.
Yeah.
And that's mainly how I find out about that stuff. So
yeah. Anyway, so do you want to learn about the Flying Dutchman?
Sure, why not? We're all here already, I guess.
So enthusiastic.
I
Let's
could
fucking
interrupt you
go.
a couple more times if you'd rather.
I think you're going to, and that's totally fine and expected. But I'm going to at least give us the semblance of forward motion.
Okay,
So
I'm ready.
the Flying Dutchman typically refers to, a lot of people think of it as referring to the ship. In most cases, it's actually referring to the captain. He is the Flying Dutchman because the captain was, in most accounts, was a captain for the Dutch East India Trading Company back in the original year that people will link to the sinking of the ship that became known as this ghost ship, what took place in 1641. So this is a very old legend that has been around for hundreds of years. And it is generally spotted somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean near the Cape of Good Hope off the coast of South Africa. And it sometimes ventures outside of those waters and has been seen in the North Sea, which is between Britain and mainland Europe. And also the one or two other capes that I forget the name of off the top of my head. It has moved around a lot, but has mostly been seen off South Africa on the Cape of Good Hope.
Sounds like they should rename the Cape of Good Hope to the Cape of Scary Ship.
Well, that place, the Cape of Good Hope, I found out you're 100% correct in that. I guess it's just a place that a lot of ships crash.
Oh,
Jules
nice.
is dying right now. You really got her with that one.
I mean, he's right.
Yeah, it really seems
you.
like the Cape of Abandon All Hope, ye who enter.
Yeah.
It's a little long, a little hard to put on a map, but it does crash a lot of fucking ships. So
Fit it in.
yeah, I think you can make it work.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's where the ship is normally seen. It became there's the whole story, which we'll get into, which has a lot of different versions of how the ship crashed and why it's cursed and all that kind of stuff. But in general, it is the ghost form of a ship from the Dutch East Trading Company that was sailing back from, I believe, India, and came back around the Cape of Good Hope to save time, crashed, and was sentenced to forever sail the seas, is the basic gist. Various people will sometimes change that year from 1641 to either 1681 or even 1729.
And what's weirder still is some people just say 1993 and they don't give a fuck.
Yeah, I got nothing. Yeah, sometimes they'll say sometimes like only 90s kids remember the Flying Dutchman. It's mostly seen during violent storms when conditions are very bad, and this leads some people to really lean into the fact that it's probably some form of mirage or Fata Morgana, but it is mostly seen during violent storms, and it can sometimes even cause whole ships to be found vacant and left on their own. Like it supposedly will sometimes just wipe out whole crews. The name, like I said earlier, does refer to the captain of the ship, who was a Dutch captain who has been reported under various names depending on the story. The most common is Captain Hendrik van der Decken, but there's also in various tellings he's sometimes named Captain Valkenburg or Van Straten, Fakis, or Van Demmen. All these names will get used in various recountings of the Flying Dutchman legend throughout time. Some of those other names are usually linked when the story gets moved into like the 1700s era instead of the 1600s. So the canon is not like set. It is a pretty loose canon, depending on who is telling the story and what version you're looking at.
Those are also some fucking SpongeBob ass names.
They are.
Those names all sound like names of characters who would show up on SpongeBob and they would have like one of those big beards that curls up back into itself.
Yes.
They would have that kind of look and they'd be like, say one of them. Say, my name is...
Captain Hendrik van der Decken.
My name is Hendrik van der Decken. Yeah, that is a SpongeBob character.
Yeah.
For sure.
One of them was named Demon.
Van Demon.
Yeah, Demon or Demian.
Is that where we get the name for like jeans and jackets and stuff? Is that the guy who?
Oh, Von Dutch?
No, Van Demon.
No, he's denim.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Kyle's
Shit, my bad.
making a little joke.
I look.
He got you.
I knew he was making a joke. I just was thinking it was a different joke than what he was making.
Von Dutch is another good pull though. So
Yeah.
you yes-anded him and you didn't even mean to.
Yep.
To get on the level of my jokes, you have to maybe pull your brain out, punch it around
I have to remember.
a little bit.
No, I think I just have to remember that you probably don't know like popular jeans brands from the early 2000s. You know, like
Yeah.
like fashion brands.
Yeah, like Hugo Boss, and
that's that. You don't need to say no more. You've already proven
okay,
it.
okay.
So generally, if you encounter this ship,
You're
they
fucked.
might, well, possibly yes, but there are some rules to it.
Okay.
So the men aboard the Phantom ship will probably ask you to take a letter for them to deliver to a loved one. If you happen to take these letters, you're fucked. So if you ever happen to see the Flying Dutchman or really other ghost ships, because like Kyle mentioned earlier, and I have a couple tangential notes later on, there are other ones. Just don't interact with fucking ghost ships. It's a bad idea. Now
That feels counterintuitive to me.
How so?
I would think if you spurned them, you would be punished.
yeah, but it's basically it's tied into the legend itself in some ways. We'll get to it, but it basically is their curse is having unfinished business. So
if you touch the unfinished business, you're cursed.
then you have the unfinished business as well, and that you cannot deliver a letter to a dead person, so that business is never finished, and you get cursed.
It's been a couple years, or maybe it was literally last year since we watched it. How much of the ship from the fog is based on this? How similar is
The
it?
fog.
Don't they have unfinished business? It was Treasure or something, though, right?
Yeah,
Captain Blake from the fog. How similar is he?
I bet Captain Blake was like at least it might have been based on something because like the Flying Dutchman legend has been reinterpreted in a million things, like up to and including Pirates of the Caribbean. But it is so it very well could be inspired by that. Yeah,
Cool.
because there's. I think I know what that might be pulling on, which is the version of this story that gets told in the Wagner opera, which is based on a specific version where it has this like they can return to land every once in a while category to it.
So the fog is kind of riffing on that.
I think, but I'm not 100% certain. I don't know what Carpenter was doing at the time, but that would be my guess.
I think this is also similar to the plot of Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island.
Nice.
So
Probably. I don't know if I've ever actually seen that one, but I'm going to take your word for it.
I saw that one a lot when I was young.
Yeah. I watched all the TV shows. I never really watched many of the movies.
I remember thinking that the first couple Scooby-Doo movies were kind of fucking awesome as a kid.
They probably were.
They were
I
like,
just never watched them.
I remember it blew my mind because I think on the Zombie Island one, they like found definitive monsters that were not people, and that was like a mind blower to me.
Okay, so yeah, those are the later ones where they start to deal with like actual paranormal shit instead of just greedy rich people.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So
Can you imagine if there's like a later episode of Columbo where Columbo is just like, and this house is just fucking haunted.
yeah,
What's weird is a ghost did this one.
See, it's much better than some of the other things they did to try to differentiate Scooby-Doo seasons, like if Columbo just showed up in a different colored trench coat.
Yeah.
And it just was never remarked upon, you know?
He shows up, he says, just one more thing, Mr. Flying Dutchman.
Yeah.
Did Columbo ever hang out with the Scooby Gang?
I think that they must have just missed each other with like the what back when Scooby-Doo
I mean,
was doing
I don't
the
know, because
Harlem
Columbo did
Globetrotters.
like go into like the 90s. So like, I'm sure that there's some fucking overlap there.
Yeah.
But he seems like he'd be ripe for the picking to put him in a cartoon like that, but I've never seen a Scooby-Doo version of him.
Yeah, I could imagine like Ghoul School era Scooby-Doo, like fucking Columbo in there, and he's like hanging out with Shaggy and Scoob in the kitchen while they're investigating a place, and he's like, "Oh boy, now that's a big sandwich. Now, you know, my wife, she loves sandwiches."
So
you know, like
See, they both care. Like Scooby-Doo and Columbo both are. Their whole premise is that they get misjudged by rich people.
Yeah.
So they would fit together very well.
It really is like
Is
but like
Scooby-Doo
Columbo
just
ran
Columbo for
like from
kids?
the 70s to the 90s. So like why wasn't he ever on Scooby-Doo?
Columbo
Must have been on competing networks or something.
Maybe.
Scooby-Doo.
Yeah. Hey, whoever has the fucking IP now, someone make animated Columbo. No, because then they'd fucking AI voice Peter Falk. Like, you can't do that shit. Never mind. Leave him alone.
You got to just get somebody to do a good impression.
Yeah, do a Peter Falk impression.
Get
Definitely.
Brian Doyle Murray.
There you go.
Do it.
There you go. So let's get into the actual story of the Flying Dutchman, the legend of its origin. There are a couple kind of main versions of this. There are two that I'm going to tell you, both of which have some variations we'll go through as we go. But we're going to start with what is, I believe, the kind of original version or at least the version that is closer to the original version that has then been, permutated on. So, this is the story of Henrik van der Daken. They were traveling. He had been sailing already. They had done a successful journey over to pick up spices and exotic shit from India for the Dutch East India Trading Company, and then they were on their way back with a good haul when they tried to save some time due to some weather, and they decided to go through the Cape of Good Hope, which is the most direct route they could take. But the winds were already really bad at that point, and but the captain was stubborn and continued just going on and refused to, dock or change course or do anything that would basically make the voyage easier. Then things just continued to get worse and worse with weather. The sea was really throwing them around, and things got very, very bad to the point where they needed to do something. And in the earliest versions of the story, the captain at that point realizes his error and his foolishness and tries to turn things around and get into safer waters, but it's too late and they're already too far in, so he cannot. Now, in later versions, it is more of a he can't see the forest for the trees. He's too far in, and he's in various versions. He's either seen to be at that point drunk or mad by the crew. The crew loses all faith in this man, and at some point he retreats into his quarters, leaving the people just to fend for themselves on the boat.
He retweets.
Yes.
He reposts an X.
Yeah, he reposts just him with a mug of grog, just going, having fun, and all the crew just is like really mad at him and sees it because they all get notifications for his tweets.
Trapped in the middle of the ocean in the middle of a bad storm, SMDH.
Yeah.
You guys, there's a writer strike. You can't start writing the new season of Our Flag Means Death on this podcast right
Good call.
now.
Yeah. We'll
Straight up what
refrain.
you're doing.
So, so the captain is in his quarters, either off his rocker or at least drunk or something. And the crew tries to kind of fix the thing as he's in there. They try to kind of seize control of the ship and go around. In some stories, they straight up try for a mutiny. And at this point, the crew starts to believe that as the captain is like just rambling and yelling and like just being totally unhinged in his quarters, they think that he is challenging or blaspheming towards God. And they think that the captain is going to incur the wrath of God. And at this point, I believe the captain starts like waving a gun around at some point, but as the mutiny starts to take place, only in certain parts of the story, he comes out of his quarters and shoots the person that is leading the mutiny to take control back. And then as he's tossing the body overboard, a figure comes down and is on the ship. And in the earliest versions, it is an angel. An angel comes down from heaven and basically calls the captain on his shit, saying he's a very stubborn man, and the captain just is taking none of it and starts to just chastise the angel and saying that he never asked God for anything, so why are you here? And like I'm just totally just is given lip to an angel. And at this case, the angel decides that he's had enough and condemns and curses the ship and the captain specifically to sail the oceans for all eternity. And you have to basically, in some versions, it's predicated on the fact that he has to reach his goal, which you can't do because the ship crashed. And in other cases, he just has to sail for all eternity. There are some various like ways to get out of it that get written into some versions, but the original version is just you have to sail forever.
Okay, I'm dreamcasting this right now.
Yeah.
The angel is Peter Falk.
Oh, okay.
And the
All right.
captain is Cassavetes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I could see that. Yep. We watched Mikey and Nikki, which it was a Lane May movie. Yeah, it's fucking incredible.
It's so good.
Oh
It's on
my God.
Criterion Channel. Check it out.
Yeah, for fans of Uncut Gems, I don't know, something like that.
I mean, yeah, that's fair.
In a similar kind of nail biting way, but it's a little more comedic, kind of.
For fans of Good Time,
Ooh,
Yeah.
okay. All right.
right?
Yeah,
Now,
I still haven't seen that one.
not related to movies, I'm sorry, but you said that the captain was off his rocker earlier,
some people think so. Yes.
or that might have been what happened. And it is, have you ever had a phrase or something where suddenly it clicks into place what that phrase must come from?
Yeah.
Because it just occurred to me what off your rocker must mean.
And what does it mean?
I think what it means is that you're in a rocking chair, like an old person in a rocking chair, and when they get up and they're like babbling nonsense and going crazy, you got to get them back down on their rocker so that they can chill out.
Oh, I thought it was like you were going so wildly that you tipped your rocker over and fell out.
Could be either one. I'm going with mine.
Yeah.
I like both.
Yeah.
I've never heard Kyle's before.
I haven't
I've
either.
actually never heard someone describe explicitly what it meant.
Yeah, I realize now that
But
I
I
don't think I have
actually
either.
think like Kyle might be onto something.
He might be.
I don't know if that's what it is, but like as you're saying that phrase, I was like, where the fuck does that phrase come from? And then it poof into my mind. My grandma's old rocking chair and a gnarly old sea captain sitting at it, getting up and waving his cane around. That's where my mind went. I could be wrong though. I don't
We're
know.
gonna start doing It Gets Weird episodes on the etymology of various.
Oh, please
phrases.
email
There you
us. What is the origins of Off Your Rocker? Who won this competition in the Off Your Rocker challenge?
Yeah. Which one do you think is true, or do you have the actual answer? In which case, is the answer better than mine? Probably not.
What if we're
So-
both wrong?
Oh, we probably are. Like, it's
What if
probably
it's something
actually has to
crazy?
do with some type of thing from like milling grain in the fucking 1600s
Yeah, that's
or
true.
some shit.
Yeah.
But I don't know. So, in other versions, it's not an angel. At some point, they decided that it wasn't an angel anymore, and instead, the devil appears on the ship, and basically a similar thing happens. But in most cases, okay. This is where I struggled to parse a lot of these things because there's so many different versions and every website has different versions. So I'm just going to give you some splatter versions of what happens here. There's versions where it is all predicated around a dice game that basically the captain is saying, betting with the devil, if I beat you in this game, you have to give us safe passage out of this. And he loses. So there's a motif of dice that gets introduced there that some people take as part of this lore. Others don't see that as much. In some cases, the devil shows up and he just continues acting wild, and like it just kind of you substitute him in for the angel there. The devil just curses him, and that continues it on. And there's also a variant that is the Wagner variant, as I've grown to call it, but is actually from a story by a guy named Heinrich Himmel, I think Himmer, who that introduces the idea of every 7 years the captain can come ashore, and he can come ashore to try to find his true love. And once he's found his true love, the curse is broken. And that's the version that basically that I think was influenced the Pirates of the Caribbean, right?
I was going to say that's
movie.
Pirates of the Caribbean, right?
Yeah, it's not exactly, but all the elements are there. They just, twist it around a little bit to make it a new thing. But that is the version that the whole Wagner opera is about this woman who comes across this captain that she falls in love with, and she has to like prove to him that she loves him fully, and it can break the curse, and that's like the happy ending. So that is in
is
a
it
lot.
Orlando Bloom who gets cursed in those movies? He gets cursed, doesn't he?
Yeah, he gets cursed at the end of the first one.
Oh yeah. It's been a while since I've seen those.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's kind of the first run of everything. Heinrich Heine, that's his name. That's why I was having trouble with it.
There's a SpongeBob ass.
Heine. Yeah. Probably Hein or something, but
no, it's Heine.
It's Heine.
Then there's kind of a second version that's less detailed, and this is the one that you'll find on like very quick write-ups of stuff that it's more common on like listicles and stuff like that nowadays. And it follows a similar format, but it doesn't have the mutiny. The captain is doomed by his own kind of foolishness, I guess. So in this case, Vanderdaken was coming back from the Far East like normal. They're on their way home. He wanted to start like a settlement on the Cape on the tip of South Africa to kind of provide a place for crews to stop and kind of, which would really solve this whole thing for him, I guess. But as they were sailing around the Cape, he got so deep in thought, I guess, thinking about his really cool colony he wanted to start in Africa. And he failed to notice these dark clouds coming in. And by the time he noticed, and the kind of whoever, the guy that stands on top of the crow's nest and yells when he sees stuff.
Oh yeah.
That guy's like storms, and causes a ruckus. And by that point, they're too far out into the waters, and the captain and his crew battled this storm for hours, and then all of a sudden they heard this crunch, and they had kind of come aground on some rocks and fucked up their ship, and the ship started to sink. And at this point, Vanderdecken, who was totally not ready to die, just screamed out that he will round this cape even if I have to keep sailing until doomsday, which is a line that you'll get a lot in these stories. The until doomsday has become like a quoted part of the lore of the Flying Dutchman. And so in this case, there's not a like specific entity that curses him. It's basically he is too foolish and gets this on himself.
He monkey paws himself.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, he makes it.
Once again, I cannot stress enough that the open ocean is just endless horror to me. The idea that you could just be out there and like, first of all, the idea that there was a long period of time in human history where the only way we got from place to place, transcendental was to sail on a boat across these waters where you could die in all these different fucking ways is crazy to me.
And you would have to be on the boat for such a long
time, years sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't even see land for like really long periods of time.
Sends chills down my spine. But like the idea of being out in the open ocean and just being like hearing a crunch and realizing your ship is sinking, I mean, that's got to be one of the most horrifying ways to die ever.
look, it would take a while because the ship has to sink and then you have to like it's a very slow death, and that would have to suck.
And what kills you? Do you drown? Does a creature eat you? Do you get exhausted? Do you starve to death? Well, there's so many different ways.
Do you
could freeze to
seawater? You know, you eat too much seawater, and then that salination.
You could become
kind of
pickled.
Stuff, yeah.
You kind of like cured, I guess is the term.
Yeah. What is the ocean but just a big old thing of brine?
Yeah.
You know.
So
I'd
going to be a
love to
tasty
become
snack
pickled.
for. It's that one movie that what's his name did about his
American Pickle with Seth Rogen.
Seth Rogen, thank you. Yeah, it was weird that he took a break from podcasting to make that movie, but it's like a funny
podcasts?
idea.
He only does movies about green guys now. Pickles, turtles,
Yeah, you're right.
etc.
Yeah.
Does he have a podcast?
I mean, I don't listen to it, but mainly because I thought it was weird that he gave, Alex Jones a platform.
Oh, he did? I straight up didn't. I really didn't know Seth Rogen had a podcast. Didn't know that.
Kyle's joking.
He would though, wouldn't he?
Yeah,
I'm doing a bit where I'm confusing Seth Rogen and Joe Rogan.
They do have the same name.
They have
do you know I have?
I
a
didn't
running
realize
bit.
that was the bit. I thought you just didn't. Were making
I
a
know
podcast.
Joe Rogan from news radio. Okay. And I was a fan of his when I was younger.
Yeah.
And his name is just Joe on that show. And it is like a running bit that he doesn't have a last name and no one knows his last name. And the character's name is Joe. He then goes on to host Fear Factor. The first episode of Fear Factor, I was watching with my family who all watched news radio. And he starts the episode out and goes, "Hi, I'm Joe Rogan."
Oh,
and my brother goes, "His last name is Rogan?" I think it every time I see the fucking Joe Rogan show little thing.
Yeah, every time you're
I go,
booting
his
up an
last
episode.
name is Rogan?
Yeah.
Yeah, every time I'm loading up an episode, I've got my slippies on. I'm all curled up with a nice episode of the Joe Rogan Experience. He just makes a lot of good points.
He's just willing to listen to anyone, and that's
He's
what's
so open-minded.
So
That's what is really
interesting.
important to me. Is that he's willing to hear people out.
He just has such interesting guests on, and he asks them such interesting questions like, have you been on an ayahuasca trip? Or do you think chimps smoked weed? I just want to say that I was dying because once I revealed the bit of Joe Rogan and Seth Rogen, Jules is like, yeah, they have the same last name. Moving on.
No, because I'm saying it's about the last name. But see, I truly understood that it was a bit, and I was hoping that you were going to go into what the Seth Rogen podcast
Well,
was.
I'm sorry. But I just thought that was very funny. It's like, yeah, we get it, Kyle. We know.
The origin of the Flying Dutchman, in terms of the legend, it started as just a sailor tale in the 1600s. It was just a thing that they would tell people about. It would be a kind of an omen or a portent as between sailors. It first appeared in print, and a reference appeared to it in print in the 1790 book Travels in Various Parts of Europe, Asia, and Africa during a series of 30 years and upward.
You got
John MacDonald.
You could cut that title down, I think, by a couple words.
Yeah, it is not a snappy title.
Weren't you guys the ones arguing to name the cape where ships crash and other bad things happen?
That was Nile.
Etc.
That was yeah. And even I said that was a bit of a mouthful, but I think you still could put it on a map.
Definitely.
Look, they used to fill up maps with like sea creatures, and nowadays, like everything's too clean and simple. You should add some fun.
Yeah, let's
shit
get.
on maps.
I want maps you can't read.
Yep.
Yeah.
I want to bring back clutter.
More illegible maps.
We want maximalism on your maps. Mapsimalism.
Check, check, check.
Boo.
All right. So the first reference ever to the Flying Dutchman in print reads, "The weather was so stormy that the sailors said they saw the Flying Dutchman. The common story is that this Dutchman came to the Cape in distress of weather and wanted to get into harbor, but could not get a pilot to conduct her and was lost, and that ever since, in very bad weather, her vision appears." So in that case, like in this early time, it's even that story is a little different because it has someone coming in trying to bring the captain ashore, which is not a part of like any other legend I've heard.
The thing is, like, I know that like ghost ships, quote unquote, that like people have been known to go out on ships and then powerful waves or whatever washing people away and things like that. Do you think that maybe sailors were just coming up with stories to explain, what happened to entire crews of people who disappeared?
It's very possible. What's funny is there is a historical person that people think is the inspiration for the Flying Dutchman, and I'll get to that in a minute. But in reality, people think that that yes, there's a little bit of that it's this people will either get boarded by pirates and killed, and then the ship just is gutted and left out to sea, and you'll come upon it sometimes, or waves will wash people aside, and there'll be disease outbreaks on ships. So there are times when ships are just abandoned, and you'll come across them. But most people think that the Flying Dutchman is effectively a Fata Morgana or a mirage.
Gotcha.
In most cases.
Weirdly, the historical figure is Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Great. However many greats.
Yeah,
right?
it's a lot. But yeah.
But he didn't have a podcast. He would carve bigoted shit into whalebone, and people would find it washed ashore.
Yeah, he would basically take his zine from port to port effectively and say slurs. It was really, really important work at the time.
Well, he never will just this guy, the historical figure that we're talking about, fucking William Rogan the 17th or whatever.
Yeah.
He never explicitly said slurs. He would just ask I don't know, what if white people are just smarter than other races? He just would pose it as a question because he's just curious.
He's just kind of asking
curious
questions, right? And there's no harm in asking questions.
You're smart if you ask questions.
The thing that I really love about the bloodline of the Rogans is that they all have a fixation on apes. They really love apes. They're scared of them. They have honestly, a healthy fear of being torn apart by a strong as fuck ape. That guy was also, in addition to all the stuff you guys were talking about, he was also spreading awareness of ape violence. So
yeah.
Some positives,
weirdly,
some
he also
negatives.
sold boner pills.
And and he did sell Blue Chew.
Get you Blue Chew.
Yeah. Yep.
So 5 years later, we get another mention of the Flying Dutchman in a text entitled Voyage to Botany Bay, which is also known as A Voyage to New South Wales, which is attributed to George Barrington, and I say attributed for a reason, which I'll get to in a second. And it adds a couple little things about the ship being ghostly and also appearing in bad weather. That's the kind of lore that gets added by this account. But a note about George Barrington. This is just a weird rabbit hole that I went down because I was trying to figure out a couple of the origins of these things. So George Barrington probably did not in reality write this book. It was attributed to him, but he did not write it. So this is from some sources I found online. I think part of it's from Wikipedia and part of it's from a site that was really digging into. I found some weird web pages, one of which was for a graphic design firm in Florida that uses the name The Flying Dutchman Productions, but they have a web page that is just the legend of the Flying Dutchman, and it's weirdly sourced and it's weirdly well done.
That seems bad for your SEO as a company, though.
Well, this webpage was probably before SEO was much of a consideration.
One of those.
It's very old.
You said sources, and I heard sorcerers. So you got some
R.I.P. William Friedkin.
Interesting stuff from online sorcerers that fed you information about the Flying Dutchman.
Yeah,
and I like that.
The sorcerer took over my Google.
Yeah.
And showed me a secret website.
Yeah. No, I think you got a virus, Jules.
They showed you how to access.
Is it trying to get you to pay Bitcoin?
They put you on the Tor browser and took you to illegal
sold
Wikipedia.
Me an NFT.
Yeah.
So a little thing about George Barrington, which is just interesting to me. George Barrington was tried and convicted at the Old Bailey in London in September of 1790, 5 years before this book came out. He was sentenced for picking pockets and was sentenced to what was called transportation, which basically means work crew on a ship.
Oh, yeah. That shit's fucked
for
up.
7 years.
Yeah. Yikes.
He spent time on the convict transport ship Active, which sailed from Portsmouth to Port Jackson in Sydney, near and went by Botany Bay, hence the story that the book name. It anchored briefly at Table Bay at one point, and he was around when like Botany Bay became this public, a place of public interest because of both his notoriety and also I think there was some stuff happening in Botany Bay that led to these books being written that I don't fully know all the story to. But basically, people started to write books that are George Barrington's, things like George Barrington's Voyage to Botany Bay, A Voyage to Botany Bay, an impartial and circumstantial narrative of the present state of Botany Bay. All of these things were like in the frenzy of George Barrington Botany Bay hype, to the point where people were just like taking stories from other texts that were about like sailing and problems in sailing and everything. And they would whole cloth just take these stories from other books and publish these books under the name George Barrington to try to capitalize on this weird like phenomenon.
Fucking George Barrington fever.
Yeah. And what's strange about it is one of these books includes a random encounter with the Flying Dutchman that, in like I said, it added some of the stuff that we look at today as trademarks of it. The storms, the fact that it was actually a ghost ship, and not just like the ship that was going down and like in the original one. But none of that stuff was directly taken from another book, as far as I can tell. So I don't know where it came from. It got added into a plagiarized book of stories that was submitted under the name of someone that didn't write it and is now part of the canon, but no one is 100% certain where the fuck the stuff about the Flying Dutchman came from.
That's interesting.
Wild.
Yeah.
Now, can I just point out how funny it is that the original George Barrington had a judge tell him that he was sentenced to transport on action?
On active.
Active?
Yeah. It's really strange.
Like, imagine hearing that phrase and being like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
Run that by
Run
me
the by me one more time? What
Yeah,
did
I
you
gotta
say?
do what? I gotta be active for 7
I gotta
years?
be who on where?
I don't want to be active for 7 minutes. George Barrington was
Fucking
a real
Jerry
comedian.
Seinfeld.
So
What's the deal with being
active?
I was stuck in indentured servitude on a ship for 7 years. What's up with that? And that's how Jerry Seinfeld would.
You talking about the Flying Dutchman?
Yeah.
So there continue to be various literary references to the Flying Dutchman throughout upcoming years. And they started to slowly add little bits to the lore, from the idea that it's a punishment for either a crime or kind of a misdeed, so to speak. The fact that they would have these letters and stuff they would try to foist on you. All these things came from various references and retellings of sightings or recountings of the story throughout the first 100 years of the story being in existence.
Okay, Jerry's the captain,
Okay.
Kramer is the angel, and George is the devil.
Mm-hmm. Elaine is
Okay. Yeah.
The boat.
Yeah, that is the funny thing. It's like throughout this whole thing, I never once found someone naming the boat. Like the Flying Dutchman is the captain, and I don't know what the boat is called. I've never found
Elaine.
that name.
We know now.
It's
yeah,
Elaine.
it's the Elaine. It's the Elaine. So, the first full-on printing of the entire legend came as a story that was printed in a book called a magazine called Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine in May of 1821. Maybe that's Edinburgh. I don't know where it was printed. So, whatever. And they establish all of the it was in the Cape of Good Hope. They introduced the name Captain Hendrik van der Decken. And also the letters were from this story as well. So this is the kind of the first time that the whole story gets told together and establishes a lot of the basic canon going forward that then a bunch of other people make up variations on. So that is how the lore came to be. There are various couple sightings, but first I want to talk just quickly about the actual person that may or may not have been the Flying Dutchman. That is a Dutch man named Bernard Fokke, or Fock, I don't know exactly.
Fuck?
And he was effectively he would do runs from the wherever the like wherever the East India Trade Company started all the way to India, and he would do this shit in like 3 months and 4 days. That was his record. Some places say 3 months and 10 days. To the point where people who were aware of this guy were like, how the fuck does he do this so fast? This is absurd. He must be working with the devil. So a lot of people think that he is the historical Flying Dutchman. He was this really fast sailor that if you look it up, he's listed as like dying at sea and like, or in one of the years that this came to be. I think it was the 1641 year. And so people think he's the historical Flying Dutchman. I don't know if that's true. No one really seems to know exactly where it started, because like in one way you can see him being, this guy sails so fast, he must be working with the devil, therefore you go on. But then I don't know how that gets translated into ghost ship, because he's a living human being that existed in the Netherlands, and there's like historical record of him. And shit. So,
but if he died at sea, then he would be a ghost at sea. You know, maybe that's where that's coming from.
They were already calling him Flying Dutch. Like the Flying Dutchman stuff was around while he was alive.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So I don't know how he becomes the person that way, you know?
Well, then he would be the Flying Dutchman in death as well, right? Like, isn't that how that...
No, I mean, like, they were calling the Flying Dutchman stuff with the, like, ghost ship and everything while he was alive.
Yeah.
I see.
Stuff like that sometimes just gets transposed.
Yeah, it
at a
gets
certain point
caught up in each other.
after.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am like, I'm listening, but I also am in my mind writing like a modern Seinfeld about Elaine starts dating the Flying Dutchman.
Okay.
And so Elaine is dating the Flying Dutchman.
All right.
Right? Jerry is insecure because he's mortal and made of flesh, and the Flying Dutchman is a ghost and can do all sorts of ghostly shit. And Kramer's subplot is that he gets into like trading spices.
Okay.
And he has like a series of accidents where he gets like poked in the eye and he stubs his toe, and he's like accidentally dressed like a pirate by the end of the episode.
That's pretty funny.
And I haven't figured out George's yet.
See, I was thinking Jerry gets fucked up by the fact that that the Flying Dutchman is immortal.
Yeah.
In the way that he's better than him, but then it gives George an existential crisis about dying.
Yeah.
So Jerry is like jealous, and George just keeps going,
George is anxious.
Jerry, we're gonna die someday.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
He gets anxious that way. Yeah.
I
I think that's the dynamic for
That's
that.
all very good, but the Kramer side story is really fucking good.
See, when you first said Kramer and spices, my first thought was somehow by the end of this episode, he's going to have like a lot of like tarragon or something.
Yeah.
Like he's going to inundate on one spice that he thought was going to be really popular and end up with just a bunch of it that no one wants.
Yeah.
But yours is better. He ends up as a pirate. That's really good.
Oh, fuck. Are you the person who runs modern day Seinfeld on Twitter or whatever, Jules?
You guys, it's me. It's been me.
Have
all
you been
along.
raking in the modern day Seinfeld Twitter bucks and not telling us this entire time?
It is really lucrative to run a
God.
popular Twitter account.
What if Jerry get iPad?
So, do you want to talk
I
about
like how I called it modern Seinfeld, but I'm talking about a ghost and
Yeah.
like
And hundreds of years old. Yeah.
from the 1600s or
Yeah,
whatever.
it's so it can be modern day, but like the last that actually says the last known sighting, as far as I can find on the internet, is like in the 1950s. So if anyone's seen it since then, let me know.
Yeah, hit me up.
Did Seinfeld ever see the fucking Flying Dutchman? So, as one of the most famous sightings of this thing, which is where I'm going to start, comes from 1881 on July 11th, when the future King George V, along with his brother Prince Albert Victor and their tutor John Neil Dalton EA, I don't know, moored in the Bass Strait off the Australian coast between Melbourne and Sydney. They were on a 3-year voyage around the globe, which I guess was a thing they were doing. And at around 4 a.m., the various princes, they only name one prince by name, but I think at the time King George was a prince as well, so those are the princes. They saw what something that was entirely unexpected. They said in this written account that you can find, they said, "The Flying Dutchman crossed our bows. A strange red light as of a phantom ship all aglow, in the midst of which light the masts, spars, and sails of a brig 200 yards distant stood out in strong relief as she came up on the port bow. The officer of the watch from the bridge clearly saw her, as did the quarterdeck midshipman, who was sent forward at once to the forecastle. But on arriving, there was no vestige nor any sign whatever of any material ship was to be seen either near or right away to the horizon, the night being clear and the sea calm." So basically, they saw a ship, and it started to come upon them, and then it just kind of disappeared. There was one more log entry that acts as kind of a postscript to this, that says, "At 10:45 a.m., the ordinary seaman who had this morning reported the Flying Dutchman fell from the foretopmast cross trees onto the top gallant forecastle and was smashed to atoms." So basically, it scared this guy so much that he fucking died.
Cool.
Now, are we sure that, like, does it almost seems like Flying Dutchman maybe became a catch-all term for mysterious ships at sea, right? Like,
and there's the rub. It does happen that the Flying Dutchman becomes the Kleenex of ghost ships. So things will
not
get
exactly
attributed
fair,
to it.
but go ahead.
I think it's very,
The
everyone calls it all, no matter what it is, you call it the Flying Dutchman.
Yeah, it's the Kleenex. I'm trying to think of another
The
example.
Xerox.
Nintendo.
Go play your
Boomers,
Nintendo.
go play your Nintendo.
Yeah. Leave it
That's
in.
staying in. So,
You said they were on a 3-year voyage,
yes.
and I believe you said something along the lines of, I guess that's just something that they did.
Yeah.
You know when you're trying to find something to watch on Netflix? Back in that day, if that was if that feeling came upon you,
Yeah.
you would go on a 3-year voyage on a ship.
Yeah. It's like when I watched The West Wing for
Oh,
the fourth time.
fuck.
They're like, at that point, you just take this, you circumnavigate the
See,
world, you know?
when Nile said, they went on a voyage around the world in 3 years or whatever, and that's just a thing that they did, all I could imagine in my mind was like an old 17th century boat with old 17th century people, and they get off the boat, and the first thing the person says is, "So I did a thing."
That's their Instagram post.
So there are more accounts in the British Navy. One was the Captain W.F.W. Owen, who was a Royal Navy surveyor in the 19th century around the Cape at the tip of southern Africa. He was recorded in the log of the HMS Levin from the year 1823. They saw the Phantom ship twice. One time, the ghost ship dropped a small boat to attempt communication with them. Luckily, the captain did not respond to this and did not take their bait for the letters and everything, so they didn't get cursed.
Oh, thank God. They probably left a real ship out to just fucking die.
Well, what's funny is the second, another Royal Navy record thing shows that at one point the Royal Navy came across a ship that mutineers had rigged to try to look like a ghost ship, like the Flying Dutchman, basically as an ambush point.
That's awesome.
So, once this became, this was just a thing that if you sailed the high seas, you knew of the Flying Dutchman as a thing. So people did try to use it to their own advantage in skullduggery and piracy. But it occasionally also was just used as a, hey, don't fucking sail into choppy waters, that kind of thing. So yeah. There are some more recent sightings. Seen by some beachgoers in 1939 off the South African coast. It was also then seen during World War II, which brings me to my second weird rabbit hole I went down trying to figure some stuff out about this. In a lot of places, you will see that the last sighting of the Flying Dutchman took place in 1942. There are some after that I found up to about 1959, but most places cap it at 1942 during World War II. And that sighting is most times linked to one Nicholas Montserrat, who was a who was one of 4 witnesses who saw the ship enter Table Bay near Cape Town, and they recorded in their ship's log and everything. Nicholas Montserrat is interesting because he was a writer. He post-war wrote a lot of books about being a navyman, a seaman, all that kind of stuff, and wrote a lot of nautical adventure type stories about Navy officers. And there are people that I will claim on a lot of websites about the Flying Dutchman that he references this sighting in his book, The Cruel Sea. As far as I can tell, I don't think that's true. The Cruel Sea is about some sailing in choppy waters and stuff, but I don't believe that it actually, I don't know if it actually references the Flying Dutchman because I never saw it quoted or referred to. It was just in passing references on dubious websites. However, he did write a book entitled The Master Mariner, which he only got part 1 of out before he died, which was heavily drawing on the Flying Dutchman legend. He even admitted this in interviews, but he never in any of these things confirmed that he actually had a sighting that I could find. It was never mentioned in his autobiography. It was never mentioned I didn't see it mentioned or quoted in the books that people claim it's in. He just has stories that he wrote that are very inspired by the Flying Dutchman. And so people have I don't know exactly the efficacy of the 1942 sighting, basically.
It's funny that you said that he's a writer, because when you first introduced him and you said Table Bay and Cape Town, I was going to say that sounds like a guy who you asked him where he saw the Flying Dutchman, and he is looking around the room and he's like, it was in Table Bay. And then there's a cape hanging on the door.
Yeah.
And he's like, where was it?
Cape
Town?
Yeah.
But yeah, so not a very good writer, I guess.
Yeah. He pulls the fucking usual suspects on people here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then they're
spoiler alert for the usual suspects. Jeez Louise.
Yeah. Look, we're here spoiling movies, but all of them are at least over 20 years old. Ghost Ship might not be 20 years old.
I mean, I was a little kid when it came
it's
out,
getting
so.
there.
It might be. Yeah.
And
it's probably around, if not a little over.
I'm 21.
Yeah. Congratulations. So there are some sightings beyond that. There's one in 1959, but all it is it just is this ship saw it, and that's all I can find about it. So it's not really worth talking about. But in another case of I only ever found this on one site, which thank you to vanhunks.com. There is another whole side rumor thing where Bernard Focky actually pilots a different ghost ship entitled the Libera Nos, which I guess sometimes quote unquote gets mistaken for the Flying Dutchman. Also the Van Diemen, which is another name that people think of as one of the people that captained the Flying Dutchman, also supposedly is another Dutch ghost ship. So some people just think there are a lot of Dutch ghost ships from the late 17th century on the high seas today. So you may not have seen the Flying Dutchman. You might have found one of its 3 other options,
Are there any modern ghost ships?
Yes.
Where a fully modern boat with a crew and a GPS system went missing, and people are like, I saw it. And it's just straight up a yacht.
I'm trying to think if there were any during any war ones that are modern, I don't know of any off the top of my head, but that doesn't mean anything.
I don't know. I've only ever heard of old timey, sailboats.
Right? Aren't they always? They're always big wooden ships with a big mast or whatever. I'm wondering, are there is there a fully decked out military ship or something that went missing that people then are like, I saw it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That boat from 2003.
There's planes.
I feel like there has to be one from a World War I or II,
Yeah.
but I don't know.
I know that there's multiple stories of planes going straight up missing.
Yeah.
Malaysia flight, whatever. I forget. That's one I've almost covered on the show. But
Same.
modern boats, I don't know. I think we usually know if they don't show up at their destination or like, yeah, I don't know. It's a good question.
Yeah. So yeah, the Flying Dutchman has gone on to be a pretty major pop cultural force. As we've talked about, it's referenced in SpongeBob SquarePants. There's Scooby-Doo version. It went into a Spider-Man cartoon, Pirates of the Caribbean. It also was the inspiration to the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Or at least in part was the inspiration for that, which has also gone on to inspire a lot of other things. The ghost ship story seemed to have just been a thing in like the 17th to 18th, early 18th century. So it has become a pretty widespread thing. But I did find out Henrik Vanderdecken doesn't seem to exist. They're like occasionally there's websites that like track like old ships and shipwrecks and stuff like that he will show up on because of the Flying Dutchman legend. But he doesn't seem to have ever actually existed. The one that did is Bernard Falk. But like I said earlier, he is either the inspiration for it or also might be the captain of a different ghost ship. And the link is between the two is a little bit conjecture, but somewhat also just most people think that he was involved with it in some way, shape, or form. In reality, it probably was just the fact that a lot of ships crashed on the Cape of Good Hope, and it became kind of a way to ward people off, and the Flying Dutchman just became the way to caution sailors to be on the lookout in choppy waters around the Cape of Good Hope. And because sailors' tall tales kind of, go back and forth and grow and change over time, it also is just a fun story. It has then grown and morphed over time into what we now know of it today.
Damn.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm glad I know that story now. I didn't know it before, and now I know.
Yeah. So, do you guys want to do a big question?
God, yes.
All right. So we really we almost jumped into this too much at the beginning of the show, and I almost stopped us. But I figured we weren't too close because I wanted to ask you if you could set the Flying Dutchman
Mary
up
kill.
with anyone on Earth
Oh,
to break his awful curse and be his true love. Who do you think would break the curse of the Flying Dutchman? Let's set the Flying Dutchman up with
someone for
their
him to
true
come
love.
ashore and hook up with. You're saying
Yeah.
me?
You think you could be the true love?
I
Wow.
am the poster girl for I could fix him,
Yeah, that's fair.
but only with gnarled old shit
Sure,
captains
yeah.
from the 1600s.
Yeah. You need them to have some brine on them,
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, some wrinkles and some
Yeah.
wounds. Well, in that case, I'm going to go ahead and say me.
Okay.
Now we're competing.
I not like, I
So what do you offer that Jules doesn't?
oh my God. I can I can I can name a lot. I can do a lot of I can
You've got a David Lynch impression.
I've got a David
Yeah.
Lynch
I
impression.
don't have that in my pocket.
One. I can, although we haven't
I
heard
just saw
yours.
you make an edit mark. You better not edit any of that stammering out. The stammering all stays in.
See, this is the thing. Now I've got someone watching me make edit marks.
It's
Normally
all in. Do not. That's part of the answer.
I don't. All right.
Thank you.
I can do a lot of, lore drops on Dark Souls and Neon Genesis Evangelion.
He can do that, and I can't.
That's
That's
true.
true.
And I have a nice, I don't know, a toy collection and comics and books collection behind me, and that we can post up. He has his pirate riches, right? And we can just post up reading and watching movies and talking anime all day. And I guess that's what I'm offering. So that it's going to come down to personal preference. We don't know whether the Flying Dutchman would be into that. But I think there is some beauty to the idea of showing a 17th century ghost sailor Neon Genesis Evangelion.
I have a real answer.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Jerry Seinfeld.
Oh.
Okay. All right. So what do you think Jerry Seinfeld will offer?
Ship captains in cars getting coffee.
getting spices.
Getting
imagine,
spices.
just imagine the episode. It would be iconic.
That'd be amazing.
He takes him to a Jersey diner.
What ship would
he
he use
orders
for him?
him a bunch of pancakes. What?
What ship would Jerry Seinfeld choose to take
Oh.
Flying Dutchman?
You see, this ship really made me think of you, Mr. Dutchman.
Yeah, it's classic. It's a European model.
Yeah.
It's a little.
I wish I knew anything about boats or cars so that I could like make a joke.
Yeah.
I've got nothing.
All I know is the word frigate, so I'm gonna say he used a frigate.
It's just Jerry and a grizzled spectral ghost sea captain on a dinghy for a month in the open water.
Yeah.
Just talking, and Jerry's just
Jerry's
talking
got one
about
of those big orange life jacket things on.
and Jerry's just talking about, oh, it's so hard to make jokes these days because you don't know if you're going to get canceled for dating a 17-year-old. So
Yeah, man. So let's see. Now I have to. So am I supposed to say me? Like,
yeah, or
Yeah,
you can say whatever
I give
you
a real
want.
answer. You can give a real
yeah.
answer.
I think my real answer is I think Betty White. I think Betty White would be a good.
Well,
one
she's a
to-
ghost, so that would work.
No, Betty White's alive, right? Yeah.
Well, not Nile.
Kyle, don't tell him.
Okay, all right.
Is Betty White dead?
Are you for
Kyle,
real?
Don't tell him.
Okay.
I honestly forget. Did Betty White die? I don't remember. Anyway, regardless, because hey, Flying Dutchman's dead. This guy was fucking alive in the 1640s.
Just let it happen.
Either
So was
way-
Betty White.
They would have a lot in common.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'd have a lot in
Yeah,
common.
yeah,
Also,
yeah.
Betty White's just a very positive force.
She
because
was.
Seems to bring joy
She
to a lot of
was.
people. And I think they'd be a good fit.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely.
I
All right.
I have a new answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Robin Williams.
Oh man,
I think that he is one of our greatest living comedians.
Yeah.
And I think that he brings a lot
Ooh.
to comedy,
Ooh.
and that if the ghost met him, he's just so vibrant and full of life.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
know? And so I feel like Robin
Nile-
Williams.
Nile-
I'm
don't
glad
tell
we're
her.
all in on this same bit. That we all definitely know the answers to the questions we're asking and don't have any confusion as to the status of any celebrities.
No.
So, yeah, I think that'll probably wrap us up for the week. Kyle, do you want to take care of some business?
yeah, I would love to do that.
Actually, Jules, we'll let you go
I
first.
think he should date William Friedkin.
All right, you William Friedkin.
You want me to do my plugs? Okay. I host a podcast called The Outside Dive. It is a topical weekly wrestling podcast where me and my lovely co-host, if you like this podcast, you might like my co-host. We talk about mostly All Elite Wrestling, but we talk about wrestling every week, and it's really fun. And if you like that kind of thing, you should give it a listen. We're on Twitter and Instagram at Outside Divecast.
All right. Let's take care of some business, Kyle. If you want to follow us on social media, we're on Twitter at IGW Podcast.
You can follow us on Facebook.com/itgetsweirdpodcast.
And we're on all your favorite podcatchers, from Google Play to Apple Podcasts to Spotify. If you listen to podcasts somewhere, look up It Gets Weird, and we're probably there.
Twitch.tv/itgetsweird. Come and watch us stream video games. Do it now. itgetsweirdpodcast@gmail.com. Email us who you think could break the Flying Dutchman's curse with a kiss of true love. And I wanted to give a small little shout out here. I completely without any I plugged our podcast at Gen Con to
Oh, really?
Yeah, to the like designer and artist behind a game called Cryptid Cafe.
Okay.
So shouts out to Cryptid Cafe. They said they wanted to listen to the show. That one of the people that was at the booth was like, "Oh, I'm on the road all the time because I'm in a band and I got to listen to podcasts." And I was like, "Well, if you like cryptids, check us out." So shouts out to Cryptid Cafe. Check out their game. They seemed cool.
They're gonna start at episode 1, and
never-
a year from
yeah,
now, they're gonna email
Yeah.
you and be like, "Hey, you shouted me
yeah,
out. Thanks."
Yeah. Well, maybe
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you based off of the brief encounter whether they were start at the most recent episode types or start from the beginning types, but maybe we'll
or
see.
the chaotic start somewhere
Start randomly,
like a year
yeah.
before regular,
Yeah.
and then kind of go up and go back, and then.
But they were cool.
You gotten some of those too.
All real It Gets Weird fans know to start on the first episode that I ever guested on, because that's when the podcast really begins.
What episode was that? Do you remember?
Jersey Devil.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah, that
Give
would
it
be
a quick
the first one.
goog. I don't know what number that is, but
That's an early
that was
one.
my first episode.
So, yeah, shouts out.
Lots of you guys asking me if the water makes the bagels better, etc. on
Yeah.
that episode.
That's the question to ask.
Luckily, we got all that out of our system and never brought it up again.
No,
so,
yeah, that's true.
So,
yeah.
Patreon. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say I was trying to figure out where we were. So yeah, go ahead, Kyle.
Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We have a $2 tier and we have a $5 tier. At the $2 tier, every other week you're going to get the bonus show, It Gets Weird TV, where we're wrapping up season 1 of the X-Files. You get to vote as a patron on the show that we watch next on a poll from a group of weird-ass shows. So donate if you like that. We also have a $5 tier where you get access to It Gets Weird TV, plus another show in the off weeks of It Gets Weird TV. Sometimes it's something Nile's doing. Sometimes it's something I'm doing. Sometimes we watch a movie. Who fucking knows? It's always a blast at the $5 tier. Whether you donate to the $2 tier or the $5 tier, you get access to the main show 2 days early on Friday instead of Sunday. And you get access to our Discord where we're hanging out, chatting with patrons and talking about all kinds of cryptid UFO. With all the UFO news going on, that's been a hot button topic. If you join the patron and don't get an invite to the Discord, send us a message through Discord. We will hook you up. Send us a message through Patreon. We'll hook you up. We'll make sure you get in. We also have a $1 tier where you don't get anything out of it. You're just saying, hey, here's $1 a month. Here's a tip. Thanks for doing what you do. Thanks for being my favorite weird podcast. And if you can't donate, please tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your congressman all about It Gets Weird podcast.
All right, thank you all for coming with us on this journey from the Netherlands to fucking Cape of Good Hope. And thank you all for listening to the show, and continue telling all of your friends about it. This has been It Gets Weird, and I've been
It's
Nile.
been transcendental. I'm Kyle, signing out.
Bye.
Cool. All right.
Should you have clapped, or was that
No, we're in the same room, so our stuff
Okay.
should be in sync. so-
excellent? Oh, hang on.
Our stuff
I
is
just need you.
call it Justin Timberlake
Yeah.
the way it's in sync.
call this the Millennium. We're the Backstreet Boys.
Call it the Millennium,
Will Smith.
just cause.
Okay.
Call me DJ Jazzy Jeff the way Uncle Phil's throwing me out of this house.
She DJ on my Jazzy till I Jeff.
Yeah. God, this is such good shit. You gotta save
I'm
this for the
gonna
pod.
Jeff.
Leave it in the cold open.
No, the new thing is putting it at the end.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Cool.
Beautiful.
Cool.
So
Hello, everybody,
Okay,
from
bye.
the end of the podcast.
I was gonna say bye, everyone. Okay, I'm ready.